All right, welcome back to another edition of the Inside Franklin Athletics podcast, kind of the what are they up to, where are they now edition of it. Today I have with me just an absolute legend. He's got his name on the building here. We've got with us the 37-year vet, was here until 2010. He was a athletic director from 1995 until 2010. Was the head baseball coach for 17 years. I heard he won while he was the head baseball coach for 17 years. He won over 5,000 games as head coach. Don't know if that's accurate or not. Haven't fact checked it. It might have just been something I came up with off the top of my head.
That sounds good to me.
Sounds right. Sounds right. We have with us Noel Heminger. Noel, thank you for joining me today.
Sure. My pleasure.
So first of all, just tell us you've been retired for about 11 years now. Yep. So what have you been up to?
Well, we have 8 grandkids, and I follow them just about every place they play, and soccer, baseball, football, soccer, of course, and swimming. My youngest granddaughter's a swimmer, so that keeps me pretty busy in the evenings watching them, picking them up, helping out as much as I can.
Yeah. And now, do you golf or anything?
I used to golf a lot, Brian, but I got kind of hurt in playing football in college, and I have a back issue. And when I swing too hard, it's not good news. So I used to play all the time. I taught driver's ed in the mornings from 6 to noon. Then I went out and played golf. But your priorities change as you get a little bit older. And I'm an outdoorsman. I love to fish and hunt and go to Canada. I've been duck hunting now and deer hunting this week. The weather's not cooperating with deer hunting much, but that's kind of my go-to is the outdoors, and helping my grandkids. They love to go with me when they can, and kind of teaching them a little bit about the outdoors.
Now, do you fly fish?
I attempt to. I do when I go to Canada. And of course, we haven't been across the border for 2 years, but a lot of my buddies here in town, we go up there for a week. And I've caught a few smallmouth fly fishing, but the line kind of gets wrapped around myself.
Yeah, I've gone once or twice, and I think my dad took me. Now, this like a couple years ago too, so It's not like I was a kid. But I think his patience was about done with me because I kept wrapping it and stuff, and so I'll get you some flies, some handmade flies. My dad makes all of those, so
he's a good friend of mine. That'd be great.
We'll get you a couple of those. All right, so. Just take us through high school. You said you played football, where you were growing up, where you grew up, and kind of sports that you played when you were younger.
Well, I'm a Franklin guy, of course. I graduated in 1968. Played 4 sports here at the old high school, which is now the middle school. Back then in the spring, I doubled in track and baseball. Had some great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches. And from graduation, I went to Eastern Illinois University and played football and baseball. Eastern was a great place, great fit for me, and again, had some great opportunities. And from there, my first year out of college, I got a job in Effingham, Illinois, and taught there for a year. I coached football, basketball, and baseball. Uwe Blob, I don't know if you remember that name, played at IU. He was at Effingham right after I left, but Effingham was great. Had no intentions in moving, but I got a call from one of my former coaches here at Franklin, Dick Harmoning. Mm-hmm. I played for Dick, and he called and said, we have a position available for you to coach for me back at the old junior high, which is now the Wonder 5 Center, and that's where I went to, junior high. So It worked out. I came back. It was at the old building, junior high for 2 years. Then I moved up to the high school and was on Dick's staff. We had some great years, Final Four years with the McLaughlin twins. I don't know if you remember Don and John McLaughlin, and Chris McCarty. So that was a cool run back in the early mid-'70s. So from there, when I came back, I of course coached basketball, I coached football, and I coached baseball for quite a while. And then Ted Server gave up baseball, and Ted was a great mentor, super human being. And at that point, I was serving as AD and baseball coach, and had to make a decision in '95 to either coach or become full-time AD. And at that point, decided to be the athletic director. And the '95 team with the semi-state. Brian McMillan was drafted, and Randy Phillips was drafted. We had some great kids. Of course, those two guys were really studs, but we had a lot of surrounding players around those two guys, Firebind, Petticord, and just great work ethic, great chemistry we had, and it was a fun go around with them for sure.
Yeah. Now you were, you played 4 sports, you said, in high school,
right?
And then you went to Eastern Illinois for football. What positions did you play in high school?
I was a defensive back in football, and of course a guard in basketball, and just kind of played everything in baseball. But going back to Eastern, they recruited me to play both. And after my freshman year playing football, I think I found out, or they found out, I was a little bit too small at that level, a D1 level, and they said, I think you should just stick to baseball. And I did for 4 years and lettered all 4 years, and which that was the right move. But fond memories of Eastern Illinois for sure.
Is there, when you talk about that, I mean, 4 sports, and I mean, you played collegiately too. So, I mean, above and beyond of what a lot of people are anyways. Was there a particular favorite sport? Because I'd find a lot of times, maybe people's favorite sports aren't necessarily their best ones.
That's a good point. My favorite sport was whatever was in season. And I think after my junior year, I realized that baseball was probably one. I was a left-handed hitter, and that kind of helped too with seeing a lot of right-handed pitching. And so, yeah, I would say baseball was probably my best, but had great success with football. Mark Finley, a dear friend of mine, played at IU, and I had 3 or 4 guys when I was playing football here at Franklin that went on to play D1 football, and tremendous coaches, J.R. Bishop, Larry Trueblood, Walt Kern, just great mentors for sure.
Wow. Is there a specific game or series or anything that you remember from football, from playing there?
Yeah, when we went down to play Columbus North, Mike Phipps was the quarterback. You remember that name? Pretty good player. And they were ranked. Back then we played in the South Central Conference, which was Columbus North, Bloomington South, Jeffersonville. But we beat Columbus North in an upset, I guess. But that was probably my fondest football memory from high school.
Yeah. Do you remember, like in football, the hardest hit you ever took, or do you remember that? Was that where you hurt your back?
Well, I broke 2 ribs. The guy's name was Jake Butcher. He played at Bloomington South, went on to play at IU. Jake Butcher, he got me pretty good at our field, and I was out for a game and put on. Back then, we didn't really have rib pads.
You broke 2 ribs and you're only out for a game?
I missed 1 game, a lot of ice and a lot of extra padding.
Oh, man.
But I was a receiver and a defensive back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, as far as basketball goes, obviously, state of Indiana basketball is huge. And you growing up in the '60s, that was the glory time of it. Is there some fond memories you have from that?
Of course, Ted Serber was my coach for the first 3 years, and then Dick Harmon came on board my senior year, and we won the sectional with Coach Harmoning, and went down and played Columbus North in the regional at Columbus North's gym, which was a super venue. And we were down 20 at halftime, and they had 2 players that one went on to play at Vanderbilt. They were very good, and came back and only got beat by, I think, 2 points after being down. But so that was winning the sectional the first year with Coach Harmoning was pretty cool. And so that, as far as playing basketball, that was probably the highlight.
Yeah, it's probably just those gyms back then too. They were just so. I mean, it was just all on top of each other. That's probably a crazy environment to play in.
Full house. Yeah, sure was. We had to bring bleachers around the top of the old gym for additional seating. I don't know if you knew that or not, but yeah, it was that was the game in town. We didn't have soccer. We didn't have a lot of the travel stuff, and people would line up. We had people would line up for season tickets before the season, and that was kind of cool to see. People don't realize, again, the crowd had.
Now, kind of jumping ahead, but I'll come back. If I recall correctly, so my senior year, I think it was 98.
Okay.
We hosted regionals. Didn't
Yes,
we put upper or bleachers up top that game?
Well, if you're talking about we had a regional, but what we did, we hosted the Class 1A regional also.
Oh, okay.
All the small schools, and they would line up because those smaller schools didn't have football. And again, it was the only game in town. They would be at the swimming pool doors at 7:00 to get in.
Right.
And during that time, we also won the sectional and went up to Hinkle, and I was hosting the Class 1A regional at the same time. So Don Geisler, my assistant AD, stayed back, covered the 1A regional. That place was packed. But I went up to Hinkle. That's when I think Hoagland and Sappenfield, those guys were playing, and I got beat by, I think, Delta in the evening game. But yeah, we hosted the regionals for several years.
Yeah. Now, so then baseball, obviously, with it seems to be. I mean, I always associate you with baseball just because you were the baseball coach when I was there,
right.
And obviously, now knowing that you played in college, it makes sense. So, how did you kind of get started playing baseball, and just what were some of your memories from Franklin High School baseball wise?
Well,
as a player,
yeah, we didn't have a travel ball back then. We played Babe Ruth or Legion ball in the summer, and that's kind of how they found me. Because the coach that I played for at Eastern used to be the Franklin College baseball coach, Bill McCabe, and he knew the family. He knew the little league that we went through and watched me play Babe Ruth, and so that's how I kind of got noticed, I guess. But my last year, if you will, of course, we always hosted the sectional in baseball at Crow Field, and that was kind of I spent a few hours working on that field. But we hosted Roncalli, Center Grove. We were all 3 ranked. I don't know if you remember that. It was 95. Beat Roncalli in the afternoon, and then beat Center Grove that evening to win the sectional. then went down to Columbus North and beat Columbus North and Franklin Central for the regional. So that was my last year with Fireman and McMillan and those guys. So, but really going back to your question about playing baseball as I was growing up, it was Babe Ruth, pickup games. We didn't travel. We played around here, and that's what we did,
Do you see, just from the time from when you were growing up until now, do you see a difference and a shift in like the way the participants, or the way kids participate in certain sports, and not even AAU or anything like that, but you talked about playing just pickup baseball, and it seems like it's kind of rotated. Would you have said, were more kids playing like pickup baseball than pickup basketball when you were a kid, or have you seen it switch?
It was this basketball and baseball were the same. We used to play home run derby with wiffle balls, make up a temporary fence in the backyard, and that we just threw wiffle balls at each other and made up our own games, played outdoor basketball in the snow. And of course, at my age, young kids, I feel it's important for kids to be a kid. And I think now with all the travel ball, the one sport, I was a proponent of multi-sport athletes. I felt that was very important when I was AD, and our coaches did too, that we were not that big enough school to have our kids play one sport. And as you know, Frank, we've been very successful in the all sports trophies quite often because we have kids playing. Now there's some kids that specialize. I call specialize in one sport, but I think that a lot of our success was due to kids playing 2 or 3 sports.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I saw when I was in high school too, and I think a lot of kids specialize, and they start specializing so young. I think that if you're 10 years old and you're specializing in something, I don't, to each their own, but I think it's best if you are able to spread out a little bit and just try some different things.
Right. And I know everybody's doing it now with this travel ball. It's crazy. Not just baseball, but soccer, a lot of the sports, this Grand Park up here. I've seen a lot of games, whether it be soccer or baseball. My grandson from Naperville comes down and plays in the summer. They might play 50, 60 games. And if we got 20 ball games in, we were lucky because of the spring weather and that.
Yeah.
But I think my concern is kids starting so young, and I call it burnout. I don't want, and some of them go on and play, but I think a lot of them get burnt out because trying to keep up with the Joneses and the pressure of playing, but to each their own,
Yeah, absolutely. It's, you've got, when you're just focused on one thing for so long, when you're 8, 9 years old and you go until you're 18, that's a lot of time spent on one thing.
Right.
You don't get any, like you said, you don't get a chance to be kids.
Yep. Yeah. And there's a lot of wear and tear on your body too at that age when they're young like that.
Yeah.
So.
Now, when you so you graduated and then you go to Effingham after that, and so you're in Effingham and home calls back.
They did.
So you come back and you're coaching basketball. Is that correct? Or
basketball and football at the old junior high, and then. For 2 years, and went up to the high school and coached with Coach Harmoning and in basketball, Larry Trueblood in football, and Ted. Bill Self was another one of my mentors. If you remember Bill, was a baseball coach when I was coaching with him. A lot of great people. So
as you're going through there and you're coaching, what are some of the good memories you have? Obviously, you said Final Four with basketball. Just in your initial years of coaching.
again, going back to Vanderbilt Gym, we had some, besides the Final Four team, we had some teams that were very, very good. Of course, we had a run there for a while. I think we won 8 sectionals in a row in basketball. I was AD then, but I think the atmosphere back then is something that people can't get really a good grasp of how it used to be in the gyms. And like I said before, it was kind of the only game in town, and people would line up for tickets, as I said. But there was I can't pinpoint one highlight other than there was just several.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as you come, you start coaching a little bit longer and you start coaching more. When did you start when did you get the baseball job?
70, I made some notes here. 78.
78.
And at that time, when I was named head coach, I was also working with the Kansas City Royals as scout for Indiana.
Yeah, I remember that.
And got a number 1 draft pick my second year in with Gary Thurman. Gary was from North Central and went on to play pro ball with the Royals and the White Sox. But that was kind of a cool deal to get a draft pick like that. But I learned a lot scouting sitting with these, I want to say old timers, but guys that have been on the road for years, watching talent. And it was just really, really pretty cool to listen how they critique the player, if you will, speed wise, arm wise, and hitting, of course. That was, but it got to the point. I had 3 or 4 tryout camps every summer. I had one at Franklin, Crowfield, Indiana State, Hanover, where we'd bring kids in and take them through the routines of running, time, speed, and throwing, and that. So learned a lot from those guys that were Midwest scouts.
Now, when you do something like that, how does it affect your coaching when you're also out scouting? What do you learn from that?
Well, I think it helps me look at kids a little bit differently because I know what else is out there. And I always told my kids that, sometimes we get so involved in Franklin, Indiana or Johnson County, but there's different levels out there that you might feel like you're pretty good in this area, but if you work hard, you'll realize that it'll pay dividends because you can't just think about this area.
Right.
If you're going to go on and play, because there's kids out there that's what helped me with scouting, is that I saw kids from all kind of different places, and sometimes you get entrenched just in your own little world, but there's a lot more out there than what people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So is that something that you continued after you stopped coaching baseball?
No. Once I became AD, I had to hang up the scouting because, as you know,
you had enough on your plate.
Well, I did. I had a little bit. Plus, about that time is when we started thinking about the new high school. Well, it was later on. It was probably 2005. But when we started thinking about the new high school, we had hundreds of meetings and travel. I traveled to several states looking at facilities. And one thing that I wanted to make sure of with the new facility was that we had ample space, we had ample facilities to where we would have to play our venues off campus, which we did at the old high school for several years. We played soccer at we played soccer at the old football field, we played at middle school field, we played at Creekside in the same way. I just want everything to be in one location and have enough room for kids to work out. I think the field house has worked out well, but we don't have to bus kids across town to go play someplace.
Right. Yeah.
So that was very important.
when you first started as the head baseball coach, so think about your first few years, your first 5 or 6 years. Kind of take us through that. What you learned, any of the things you remember from that, and how did you adapt? Like from when you were first a coach, I'm sure you grow some to throughout those first few years.
Well, at the beginning, a lot of our kids, they weren't very fundamentally sound. And we had to go back to the drawing board and work on technique, proper throwing mechanics. And that took 3 or 4 years. I mean, we got drilled. We didn't have a lot of good pitching and good kids. I mean, they worked hard, but they just didn't understand all the little things that would make you better. And as time progressed, Little League got a little bit better. And again, there was no travel ball in the summer. I mean, it was the spring season, and that was it. And then they started football workouts and whatever. But as time went on, I think I brought in a lot of, and I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but we didn't have, I guess, learning from college and pro ball. A batting tee was not even thought of back then. And we worked a lot on batting tees, stance, and good mechanics, what they call toss and hit, where you flip balls up and you hit into a net. So I implemented those types of drills. We didn't have a pitching machine, and I couldn't throw very hard, and Ted couldn't throw very hard. So we're out there throwing batting practice, and I mean, they're hitting a ball, but then when we get to a game, we see a guy bring in a ball at 80, 85 mile an hour. We couldn't touch it.
You're not lobbing that thing into me? I thought this was batting practice.
But I'll never forget going in Mr. Server's office, and I'm a young buck. I mean, I'm young and gung-ho, and surely I didn't have all the answers, but I said, Coach, we need to buy a pitching machine. And he said, well, we both throw. I said, but Ted, it's not fast enough, So he got on the phone and called the company and ordered what they call a jugs pitching machine with the 2 wheels, because now they throw footballs and everything. But we got one, and it took us a couple of days to figure out the dials on it, which one went where, but that helped. So adding those, tools really from that point on, we kind of took off pretty well.
Yeah. And then as the program starts building, you start seeing more success. How did you adapt your philosophy as you were getting, the second half, I guess, of your coaching career, and just building the program from the ground up?
Well, age helps you quite a bit. I got a little bit smarter halfway through, and said, don't stress out over the little things. And I got so stressed about we can't hit, we can't field, and I think age helps you kind of chill out a little bit and talk to the kids differently, because like I said, I was a young buck, and it was my way or the highway, and I'm sure that ran some kids off, but as you grow older, you understand how to talk to kids. Each kid is different. You had to find the right button to push, and I think that helped me as I matured, listened to other coaches at clinics. It helped me teach and understand a little bit better what kids were going through.
Yeah. So you've got, I guess, when kind of get towards the end of your coaching portion, those last, I guess, 4 years, you've got that group coming through with Randy Phillips, Brian McMillan, Dustin Petticord, Dave Hukin was a year ahead of them.
Yeah.
I believe was Joe Cragen. Was he on there?
I missed Craig, my son-in-law, by 1 year. He was a freshman when those kids were seniors. I wish I could have coached him. But but again, Dr. Vanderbush was great. He said, because I coached his son too, Randy, and he went on the pitch at Michigan State. But Dr. Vanderbush realized that we had some talent coming up, and I was AD then. He said, I'll let you see these kids through their senior year, which I thought was really pretty cool. But after that, you'll have to make a decision, which ultimately was the right decision. And then Jeff took over. There was probably 3 or 4 coaches in after Mark Pieper and those guys. But Brian Luce also, I hired him. But the last 4 years, I think it was we knew we were going to be pretty good. We had great chemistry and great work ethic. Not all the talent in the world, but the kids worked on their own. Back then, the rules are not like they are now, where you could, I think even now that baseball players can work out once or twice a week for an hour and a half. We didn't have that. It was just closed season, and then come March, we would work out. But I knew if the chips fell in the right way, we were going to be pretty good. And we didn't have any injuries to speak of, hardly any discipline problems. And it was just great to see those kids mature from their freshmen all the way up through their final year when we were ranked pretty much throughout the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of cool because Ryan and Dustin are coaching now. And I go up quite a bit, and they want me to be the what Coach Fireman said, can you be the senior consultant? So
you got to talk about salary with that one, right?
Yeah. But it's great. It's great to see the Max and the kids up there. I mean, again, but they've played probably through the summer, like I said, 40 or 50 games.
Yeah.
Which is bound to help you if you don't get hurt or, get burnt out.
Yeah. So that team, you made it to the semi-state championship, correct? Or I don't know how it was.
Well, we should have, if the coach was any good. We played Richmond in the afternoon game. They were ranked number one, had a stud pitcher. Of course, Phillips is throwing. We went extra innings with them, got beat in 8 innings by 1 run. And I felt if we could get by them, we'd be in the state finals, which I guess was my ultimate goal, to play up at Victory Field, the old Victory Field.
Right.
You're too young to remember that.
Busch
Stadium.
Yeah. I was there, not whole club. Razor Shines, Delino Fields, Marquise Grissom. Yeah.
You got it.
Hell.
But we got beat in the semifinal game, and I think Lawrence North went on to win that evening. But that was quite a run. It was just, and back then I would take the kids down to Bowling Green. We could play some games over spring break. I started those trips back in the late 80s, but you could only go 300 miles from your hometown. So we went down to Kentucky and played, and one reason I did that was going back to what we said. I want to show the kids there's players from different areas that we think we're pretty good, but I want you to see these kids too, because they're pretty good,
So that game against Richmond in extra innings, what happened on that last play? Someone got thrown out at third?
Yes. How did you know that?
I told you, I interviewed Firebend.
Oh my gosh. Ryan was a sophomore, and he was my DH, and could flat out hit. His speed was a little suspect, but he hit a shot in the gap that went out to the fence, and I brought him all the way around to third base, and they had what they call a double relay, where the shortstop goes out, gets the relay from the center fielder. 2 perfect relay throws, and they gunned him down at third by it was close.
Did they get him? Did
He
they
was-
actually get him?
He was out. So then in the extra innings, Petticourt's playing second, and we're still in the game, and the doggone ball hit the lip of the infield. If you know, hit the lip and took about a 15-foot bounce over his head, and that's how we got beat.
It's interesting because when he was telling these stories, he told both of those things. And I didn't play baseball. I was a freshman when that happened. So
Right.
that was, he told us that last year. So it was 15 years ago. And when he told us that, I was like, I remember that because I remember it just. But so as a coach, it's probably for you more crushing for the players.
I still think about that at night.
I was gonna ask you if
absolutely did I, but give Richmond credit. I mean, I thought, I always felt we need to put the pressure on a team, make them make a play, and that time they did, and it backfired. But no, I was down. I couldn't talk to the media. I should have, but I did a little bit. But I can't come home. And just a side note, I think you know this guy, Gene White.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Came to my house because Gene was on my staff for a while, coaching staff, and I come home and Coach White's in here. He said, "You need to talk to somebody." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Talk to me." So he just was, what a tremendous guy. He said, "Hey, he's a Milan wonder, and I coached with Gene at Franklin College.
Yeah.
Basketball team. But Gene was he said, "Hey," he said, "you've had a great career, tough deal." But that really meant a lot that he was here to help comfort me.
Now, you say you still think about that. How long after that was it that you were not over it, but how long until you were, not as down or anything as then?
Probably 5 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think that had you not been the athletic director and the next year you were going to be coaching, would that have been easier for you? Not a lot easier, but you think that played part of it, is that was the last, you knew that was the last game you were going to do?
That was it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. That was my last chance, but more importantly, it was those seniors' last chance, Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we won a sectional or regional, maybe a sectional, but I don't think we've won a sectional or regional since.
Right.
In baseball, but been close. Last year we were close. I mean, watched that sectional game at Mooresville. We're going to be good in baseball. I mean, we've been, like I said before, we've been pretty good in the Mid-State Conference, for the all sports part of it. Just very proud of that.
Yeah. And with what's like what do you miss most about coaching? What did you miss, I guess, most about coaching?
That's a great question. I've been asked that a lot. What's really hard for me now, Brian, is I don't know the kids. Mm-hmm. We sat at the ball game the other night, and I have to get I got your roster, and I know some of the parents, but that hurt. I mean, I was pretty close with all the athletes. I mean, I tried to walk the halls and meet them when they come in, but and that goes with time. I understand that, but I miss that part. I miss that part of knowing the student athletes. I don't miss the hours of an athletic director. I miss the coaches, our coaches meetings, but AD work. I mean, anymore and I hate what Mr. Doty's gone through with this COVID. We talked about it. I said, how in the world? But times change, and I still like to go up and support the kids, football, basketball, track, swimming, whatever. I miss that part where you don't know them very well.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Now,
I'm sure, who is this guy? They have no, you know.
you just need to say now. You just need to say, "Hey, this is all mine. You're in my facility."
Well, that was quite a shock, Brian, when that Mr. Doty called me last fall and said, let's go out and eat. And I had some AD questions to talk about, and we were chatting, and he said, "There's one other thing I want to run by you." And I said, "Okay." So he said, "We're working on naming the facility after you. There's an athletic council made up of, I think, a middle school principal. I mean, and of course the board. And I lost it. It's very emotional because you look back on, like I told the school board when they asked me to come in, and I'm a Franklin guy, and it just doesn't happen very often when you've been here your whole life and spent a lot of time on developing the new facility, and a lot of meetings, a lot of headache. Well, architects, this isn't right. We've got to fix this. I mean, there for 3 or 4 years there, it was meetings after meetings. I can remember sitting in a trailer out there by the art center to the north. That was our meeting. Big whiteboards, diagrams and stuff, and went to Dallas, Texas, and Louisville, Michigan, looking at facilities that our kids had ample room, ample places to work out, which I think we did that. Well, I know we did, but going back to the thing that was kind of cool, it's going to be neat to watch my grandkids play up there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot of friends and relatives came out to the dedication before the first football game. I know you probably, my wife was a big sports fan. She timed at all the track meets. She coached swimming and volleyball at times. Her dad was a Hall of Fame football coach in Downers Grove, and she was the last 10 years. Ruth was just not right, and my regret was that she was not there.
I think, just in a situation like yours and where you get that, you've put so much of your heart and your soul and just time, and even, time that you enjoy, and you enjoy the job. But I don't think people fully understand, and for Bill and athletic directors everywhere, the time away, like from your family too, because
well, exactly.
You work at the regular day, like everyone else. But then there's also like, and you've got assistant athletic directors and people that you can hand off to and say, hey, can you take this for the night? Right. But at the same time, like, majority of that stuff is yours. And if something goes wrong, that's on you as the athletic director.
That's really ironic you said that, because ADs, I was going at 7:00 in the morning, and if it wasn't for Dawn and Debbie Becklin was my secretary, we did it all. They did it all. I didn't have event supervisors. and it was either Dawn or I covering everything in the evening. So it was 7 o'clock in the morning. We'd come home after school real quick, change, go back. We have soccer or volleyball. I wouldn't get home till 10:30. And that's the time away from my wife, from my girls. And I've told my girls that one regret I had, I probably coached too long. I should have helped them more. I'd work with them quite a bit, softball, swimming. Jill swam at Ball State. But, I regret that. And I don't know if they all would have been great athletes, but I spent more time away with other kids sometimes than my own.
Yeah. So, just to get that and just get that recognition of someone saying, hey, we appreciate what you did. We see what you did, not only at the school and for the kids, but for this building and for these kids who you won't even really, work with that much. That's got to be part of it there.
Yeah, exactly.
So you take over as athletic director here. What's the first few years? There was a lot going on there. Now from the time I left to when you retired, I'm a little in the dark there. So, but okay. I know from like 90, 95, 96 when you started, there was the basketball run of 97. Yeah. There was girls basketball made the state championship. Then there was girls volleyball in the state championship, the boys cross country team. There was a lot going on there.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking about this morning. I think it was 95. Well, when Jeff ran, I think that one year we won the state cross country. Mm-hmm. We were in the Final Four in volleyball. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We were in the semi-state in baseball, all in that time frame, which was unprecedented. I mean, it was unbelievable. That was I got pictures here in the office of all that, but it was. There was moving into the new high school. There was a lot of challenges. I mean, I can remember at the old high school, we had certain boxes or containers that we would have to put our stuff in, a certain mark, a certain category, and then ship that up to the high school. My office was kind of a blank for probably 6 months because my point is there were still a lot of several final touches, not just inside, but outside too, because I remember going out to the baseball field and they're working on the baseball. I said, trying not to be mean, but I said, what are you guys doing? This is backwards. It was about the bullpens. The bullpens were facing the wrong way. There wasn't protection screen. I mean, things that I know other people would have noticed, but being around it for years. So we had to reorder and do different things. The tennis courts were not level. We had to go back in. Oh, here's a good one. The gym. And we got a lot of heat about the gymnasium being so small. I go in there one day and the guy that was a corporation manager of the project called me up. He said, we got a problem. They poured concrete and it slopes from, I think there was a 12-inch drop from one end to the other. Go back in and with those big stone concrete chisels,
oh yeah,
bust out the floor. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah. So those things, those were kind of tough to work through.
So I'm going to go in the gym after this. I'm going to stand in one end, take a basketball and set it down. And if it just stays level, if it doesn't move, I'm going to thank you for that.
Yeah, that's a true story. True story. Then we put the turf in. I watched them put all the underlayment in, all the stone. What a process. And that, it was awesome.
So with the now with the basketball, the boys basketball run that's coming up, that's going to be they're going to honor that team coming up here.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
25 years.
Yeah. And I was on the coaching staff then.
So what do you like? What do you remember most about that run?
Boy, we had athletes. Now, you don't know, well, you might know. John McLaughlin Sr.,
Mm-hmm.
Franklin, Indiana, graduated in 1966, went on to play with the Bucks. His nephews played, Don and John McLaughlin. One of them played at Butler, one of them with the Air Force Academy. But there was Larry Jewell, Chris McCarty, Gary Aplana, just not a lot of height, with quick, savvy. Those are great years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the Franklin has such a good tradition, such a rich tradition, just in so many sports. When you're walking down the hallways and you can see all the
Yep.
the pictures up on the walls, it's amazing the tradition in different sports. And just thinking about it, what are, I guess, as the athletic director, what are some of the better memories that you have? Some of the good things that you're thinking of?
Well, let me go back to the pictures real quick. Those pictures in the athletic hallway, all those pictures were on top of Vanderbilt Gymnasium.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
let me tell you, I thought it was so cool. I thought it was going to be so cool when people got their pictures up on the wall. I thought it was going to be so cool. And then my freaking brother goes and he gets 4 pictures up on the wall. So I have to sit there. Now I have to sit there every single time I walk down that hallway. I have to see his stupid smiling face 4 times. When I see all the other pictures that I remember from when I was in high school, I'm like, man, those guys are studs. And then I get this.
Well, there's a little story about, I mean, it doesn't matter to a lot of people, but I remember when we moved all the pictures from Vanderbilt Gym, and there's a criteria, a protocol on how you get your face up there. And we went through face, picture. I had an athletic council, and we had to come up with what criteria are we going to use. And that went on for quite a while, because back in the day, we didn't really have a lot of the Indiana All-Stars and all-state players. We had some, but anyway, all the pictures of old Vanderbilt Gym had what they call it was an oak colored frame.
Mm-hmm.
So all the new furniture at the high school and woodwork was not the right color. So my guy, we took out all the pictures and he restained every one of the picture frames to match the woodwork at the new high school. Huh. Can you imagine? I mean,
yeah.
And it was pretty awesome.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So,
now, I guess a couple more questions for you here. With those runs that you talked about, the boys basketball 90s and 97, girls, all that stuff. Since a lot of those were away, I know basketball was in Columbus and then went to Hinkle and stuff. Were you able to just sit back and be a fan at some of those, or was there still, once you got there, were you able to be a fan?
Pretty much, but for people to get a ticket to the semi-state or regional, that was that was tough, because I can remember we would put it out in the news. People would come in, then they want to sit in a certain reserve section with all their friends and relatives. Well, I couldn't do that, especially at Hinkle. I mean, you have assigned seats, same way at Columbus North. So that became a hassle sometimes. First of all, we had an allotment of how many tickets we could get. And so assigning seats was difficult. But back to your question of enjoying the game. Yeah, I enjoyed the game, but there was a lot of behind the scenes prior to that. Mm-hmm. I had to get lodging. I had to get food, post-game food, for the kids to eat and the travel group. So the game was great, but yet there was a lot of stuff going on before the games and after the games that you had to deal with.
Yeah. This is kind of a weird question. So you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Was there a point in a game or when you were an athletic director where you looked at a team, an individual, anything like that, and you just felt the best for them? Like something that you remember that you're like, I mean, obviously everyone deserves it, that they've worked so hard. But was there a specific moment where you're like, my heart is so happy for that person?
Well, I think it was probably that semi-state team that went to Hinkle, because there was Bart Hunter on that team,
Mm-mm.
Sappenfield, Hoagland,
Mark Pitcher, Travis Jones.
Because they were kind of unknown. I mean, I think, and especially the venue up there, playing up there and seeing those kids, do really, really well. I wasn't on the staff then, of course, and I know I'm forgetting a lot of different special moments, but after you've been there for so many years, there's you can't remember them all. I mean,
well, and that for you too. I mean, that was Stephanie's senior year, so you knew a lot of those kids. You knew a lot of them growing up, so it was probably definitely a special place for you.
Sure was, yeah. And Steph, she hung out with those guys, and Steph, I can remember she was a cheerleader, and she was in a cast. They were working out in the old wrestling room prior to the semi-state, and I'm in the gym watching practice or something, and a scream, whatever, that came out, and she was on top of the cheerleaders, one of those deals, and fell, crushed her ankle, and I said, "Hey, shake it off. You'll be all right." It was not good.
Hey, look, Stephanie, I understand your ankle's crushed, but I'm crushed right now at work. We're getting ready to go to semi-state. You're just going to have to throw some ice on it. Let's just tough it out for this week.
It was hilarious. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my last question, it's kind of a big question, kind of a loaded question. So I'm just going to ask you what Franklin High School means to you.
I bleed blue. Bottom line.
Yeah.
I've had other opportunities throughout my career, collegiately. I'm from here. My brother played here. My dad was a coach at Franklin College. It's home. And I've only been away for 5 years. And come Christmas Day, I'll be another year older. Yeah, Franklin's a great place.
Well said. Noel, thank you so much for this time. Thank you for your time at the high school and Franklin schools. And I know we'll see you around, obviously, at other sporting events.
Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it.
Once again, this has been Inside Franklin Athletics, kind of catching up with, and this was Noel Heminger, former athletic director and baseball coach at Franklin Community High School.